I was actually in the foster care system since I was about 2 years old. Growing up and just being without parents, and without that guidance, I think I've ever since I can remember, like I've always like missed them or like wanted them around or always just thought like, what is it that I lack um, for the reason for my parents not to be there type of situation. I mean, my experience with therapists, it's been mixed. Mostly good though. Just that space, just that setting. I think just creating that, just having a space to just talk, I think has helped me a lot. Just like being a black man in general, right? It's like you aren't really able to be vulnerable. You shouldn't really be expressing your emotions and expressing your feelings, and you shouldn't be tapping into that, and seeing a shrink or seeing someone that to go specifically talk about your feelings, oh, that's looked at as weak or looked at as looked down upon. I think my most effective therapist, or my most effective time seeing with a therapist, was actually when I was in juvenile hall, and when I was at the group home. And I think these was two very effective like sessions, because I think I was at a very vulnerable place in life, that I kind of needed them the most, or I needed someone to talk to the most, and just that space like was there for me to do that. Like I couldn't imagine like being in a space where you are vulnerable, um, and then not having someone there to talk to.
My mother actually was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was 3 years old. How it impacted her life and how that impacted me was a lack of motivation many times to get up out of bed, to go to work. And it was my responsibility to make breakfast. So that would be less time for her. Me being in third grade and warming up the car in the morning or ironing her clothes for her, or like there are these things that I did that would not have been my responsibility or typical thing to do if, she did not have bipolar disorder. Therapy has actually been, and mental health has been so present in my life because of um, understanding my mom's own mental health. When I came out as gay, that caused a lot of tension between my dad and me. And so my dad and I went to therapy. Oh, I also did therapy when I was a student at the University of Georgia too. And then I came to the Bay Area and I was also in therapy again. When I was in the moment, living the moment of like being in high school, being in college and seeking therapy, of course, those things were so valuable to me and so helpful. It wasn't until I left the South and found and had a different experience to realize, oh wait, maybe that took longer than it had to with those therapists.
Mental health, I didn't really realize that that's what it was. We didn't talk about mental health growing up. I heard terms like crazy. My father is a veteran of the United States military. He was in the Navy, and him and my mother divorced when I was 2 years old. My mom would say things like, he just crazy. Like I would hear crazy a lot growing up in my community, but no one really explained what mental health was to me. I definitely can say I grew up around a community of folks who manage mental health in a way of just the best they could with either drugs, alcohol. I think as Black people, primarily living in poor Black communities, there was just not the language or the information given to us. It's definitely changing. I see more advertisements in Black communities, specifically highlighting Black therapists since COVID. I think this COVID pandemic has really highlighted the need for people to take care of their mental health. I absolutely realized that I had an anxiety disorder after going to the hospital several times, thinking I'm having a heart attack, and them telling me that there was nothing wrong. I think I did that like 10 times before someone actually said to me that you are suffering an anxiety attack and you should consider medication. That was like my way of deciding that I needed to do something differently outside of, okay, I'm going to church, I'm praying about it, I'm talking to my pastor. Like, it was something else that needed to happen for me. I come from a religious background, and that stigma around it just being a God issue. Like, you just need to pray more, you need to do something else spiritually. So having a Black therapist was extremely important to me, because I felt like that person would also relate to how I felt and what I was struggling with around the religious component of it. So having a woman of color was extremely important to me. I was able to get that. That was an excellent way to get me to stay in therapy. And I worked with that therapist off and on for 10 years.